All right, I wanted to touch a little bit on when I got my parents into Bitcoin. Now, this is a funny story. So bear in mind, let me give you the history of my parents. My parents are immigrants into the United Kingdom. They built a sizable amount of wealth. It's in real estate mainly, different little businesses here and there, but mainly in real estate. And one day I basically showed up and I said, hey, by the way, I think you need to sell your entire real estate portfolio because I think Bitcoin's gonna kill it. And so obviously I was looked at like a complete clown, but I'm sort of used to this because even when I first started in my life and my dad was negotiating property deals and I was watching him at 15 and a half years old and he got off the phone and he said, what are you looking at? I said, hey, that shit looks easy. And I was blessed enough for him to, after he finished laughing, to say, well, show me that it's easy rather than just telling me to get fucked. So I've had this episode happen many times in my life. So I showed up and I said, hey, I think you got to sell your property portfolio at this time, or at least refinance it and get into Bitcoin because I think Bitcoin's going to kill real estate over the next 20 years. And they said, what are you talking about? This is so volatile, etc., etc. And I think a lot of people have that concern. A lot of people, especially those people approaching retirement, have the concern that if I get into an asset that's this volatile, I've worked so hard to build a foundation and a base of retirement, and I enjoy my life so much that why would I want to risk something just in case there's a return? Why would I want to risk my entire life and everything I've built just in case there's a return? And that's a completely fair issue. That's a completely fair comment because you are risking a lot because the price volatility on Bitcoin is no joke. You are absolutely risking a lot. So the way that I explained it to my parents is that while real estate has been great, it is now a saturated asset. So many people have their wealth in real estate. So many people have already, the majority of their wealth in real estate. But as far as growth goes, there is, it's basically maintaining the amount of wealth that you've got. The amount of money that's printed, real estate will keep up with that. Whereas if you want to actually grow your wealth, you need to conquer the rate of debasement, not the CPI rate. The CPI rate is one thing, but the rate of debasement is what you want to conquer. And so over a period of time, yes, real estate will manage the rate of debasement, but that's not really creating wealth. It's just giving you more illusionary fiat dollars to feel happy about and walk around and say, hey, I'm now worth X amount of dollars. But the reality is you're not, based on debasement. Whereas Bitcoin is a growing asset. It's an infant asset. It is something that needs to be adopted. And so a little bit of exposure in that is great. Now, ultimately, my parents didn't sell their entire property portfolio and buy Bitcoin. I wish they had, because there is this virus in the older generations of the need for cash flow. Cash flow is important, but the need for it is a virus. Because to me, my goal of accumulating Bitcoin is to own it and hold it for a long period of time. And I get my value from the appreciation of Bitcoin. And then eventually when somebody wants to use my Bitcoin to build on top of it, like how if somebody wanted to use my land to build a property on top of it, I can charge them a fee to do that. And that's how I get my cash flow. But that's not yet. It's not right now. That's in the future for Bitcoin. So in the end, what I managed to do is get them to buy one Bitcoin for every property that they own. And that was a task in itself. And by the way, this is when Bitcoin was somewhere around the $10,000 per Bitcoin mark. So now put it like this. They bought one Bitcoin for every property that they own. And so by the time Bitcoin goes from $10,000 to $100,000, they have basically doubled the value of their real estate portfolio in liquid, in an asset that can move around the world without any issues, in an asset that they can go and live wherever they want to live, and without it being subject and subjugated by the United Kingdom government, which is where their property portfolio is. So this was a big thing for them. This was something scary, but they managed to refinance their property portfolio and buy one Bitcoin per property. And now guess who's paying for their damn Bitcoin? The tenants. The tenants are paying for their Bitcoin. They're not even paying for it. They refinanced the property portfolio, they bought one Bitcoin per property, and now the tenants are paying for it, and now they have an asset that is going up. And even in the last bull cycle, where it peaked out at 69,000, it almost doubled the entire value of their property portfolio that they've been building for 35 years. And that's the real key with Bitcoin. It is a growth asset. It is not a money maintenance asset. It's not a wealth maintenance asset. Real estate is a wealth maintenance asset. And this is where they're at, and that's why it's not that volatile, because it's secure, it is stable, it maintains your wealth. Bitcoin is a growth asset. So there'll be people thinking about this, going, hey, maybe I should buy 1 Bitcoin per property, this, that, and the other. And the key thing is, it's not about buying 1 Bitcoin per property. That's what they did, because they have a son that's absolutely bullish as fuck and wouldn't stop talking about Bitcoin 24/7 to explain it to them. And even then, my mum credits Michael Saylor for her decision to actually activate and decide to buy the Bitcoin, not me, which I find quite insulting, but that's a whole different story. Now, they decided to do this because they have someone, they have a mind that they can tap into that understands it. If you're getting into Bitcoin right now, you don't have to start with going and buying 30% of your portfolio in Bitcoin. Just buy some and understand the process of buying some. And then once you understand the process of buying some, you can then start understanding the process of what Bitcoin is. And then once you understand, it's all a journey. Just like when you got into real estate, or when you got into the stock market, or when you got into your job, or when you got into anything. You don't just become an expert on day one. You need a foundation of knowledge, and that takes time to build up. And so now they talk to me about why Bitcoin's better than real estate. And that's the funny irony of the whole thing. So on that note, again, they also know the 3 rules of Bitcoin. You just gotta buy Bitcoin, shut the fuck up, and you get fabulously wealthy. However, they had to decide to move away from an asset that they feel safe in, that they feel comfortable in, and move towards an asset that is slightly more risky and that they want to develop their understanding in. They didn't understand Bitcoin at all, but they had to buy some in order to start understanding it. A mentor of mine always told me, you will only focus on where you put your money. And if you don't put your money into it, you got no skin in the game. I don't care how much you know about it. I don't give a shit. This is why, for me, I don't listen to bears. I don't listen to bears. I don't listen to doom and gloom boomers. I don't give a shit what they think. Show me your portfolio. That's a Nicholas Taleb quote. I don't care what your opinion on the market is. Show me your damn portfolio. That's all that matters. And most bears, most doom and gloom boomers, most people that are talking negatively about Bitcoin, ask them to show you their damn Bitcoin short position. And that's when you know that they're actually serious. Until they show you their Bitcoin short position, it's a complete bunch of bullshit. So that's my parents' journey for getting into Bitcoin. And that's my parents' journey for understanding Bitcoin. And then now finally understanding what real wealth accumulation is and what real wealth growth is, and not just keeping up with monetary debasement. So I hope that makes some sense, and I hope that inspires some people who at least have real estate portfolios, that you don't need to go in and dump your whole real estate portfolio and then buy Bitcoin. It's not about that. In fact, it's hard. It's extremely hard for the average person who has a little bit of wealth to liquidate all of their wealth and suddenly shift it into Bitcoin. That's extremely hard for most people that have money. If you don't have money, you're in a different position. You're in a different environment. But for people who do have money, for people who have assets, just have a small percentage and start with a small percentage into Bitcoin, start learning about what Bitcoin is. And then, like my parents one day, you'll credit Michael Saylor for getting you into Bitcoin.